Okay, let's get started. Welcome to this brief overview of key new features and improvements in Origin and OriginPro version 2024b. Before I dive into the details of the features, let me walk you through a few important pages on our website. So our web address is originlab.com, and on the home page we always have an icon towards the middle that shows the latest version. And if you click on it, it'll take you to a highlights page. The highlights page essentially summarizes all the top features in that version. So you can browse, watch videos, read a little bit about the features, etc. I'll be, of course, covering them in this webinar. So this is a useful resource. Also, if you look further up on the page, you will see that if I hover my mouse on the new feature highlights text here, I can see highlights for all of the past versions. So if you're using a rather old version of Origin, you could come back and look to see what's new in recent versions. I also want to show you the main support page. So if you click on the support menu and go to contact support, this is our main support page. You may want to bookmark this. So there is Origin software release history here. So as many of you may already know, we publish 2 versions of Origin every year, one around April, May, excuse me, and one around October, November. So you may want to check that out to see the version history. So if you have maintenance, you are entitled to all of the new versions. Going back to the main support page, there are many resources here. Video tutorials, blogs, FAQs, etc. There is also a webinars link. So if you click on it, it shows upcoming webinars. Right now, we don't have any new ones coming up. But if you click on recorded webinars, you will see entries for all of recent webinars that we did, excuse me, where you can download the project file and also play the video. So this is a good resource for learning features in Origin. You can play the webinars and also download the OPGU file to work with the recording. Any questions, comments, use the chat window. My colleague Yiming is monitoring the chat. I may not be able to watch the chat window as well. And on the web page, I also wanted to point out on the home page, there is a submitted support ticket icon. So if you click that, you can submit a ticket to our support team, and you can attach files if you wish, describe your problem, and we are very prompt in addressing the issues, and we are always looking out for new tickets that come in. Okay, let's dive into Origin. So there are several key new features. One of them is undo redo. Okay, Origin had a fair amount of undo in past versions, but we have worked on improving it by adding more undo. But we also introduced a new feature of redo. Okay, and there are 2 new icons, toolbar buttons now, undo and redo over here. So this is a little hard to demonstrate. It really depends on what type of work you do and what you may consider undoing, redoing. I'm just going to walk through a few examples and maybe it'll make sense. It's globally implemented, and if you play with the version and find problems with undo, redo, we would love to hear from you. So here, as you know, in recent versions, when you click on a plot, there's a mini toolbar that pops up. I'm going to quickly change the plot type to column bar. Okay, so now I can do the undo button to go back, but I can also do the redo button to go back to what was there previously. So, and then there is Control Z and Control Y. So those are the shortcut keys. So Control Z for undo and Control Y for redo. Okay, let's look at another example. I have a contour plot here. If I double click, I can open plot details. Maybe I set some different levels here. Maybe I want like 50 or 25 sub levels. Okay, click OK. And maybe I want a different fill pattern. Okay, I want to select a palette. So maybe a maple palette, and then click apply. So I made a change to the graph. Now I can undo to go back to the previous settings. I can redo. So this way you can toggle between two different settings. And this also goes sequentially. If I do one more change, I can go back and forth between the three. Okay. Let's look at another example. I have a worksheet here with some data, and I want to process this data by doing a reduction. So let me choose the B column here and go to the worksheet menu, and I'm going to choose reduce to evenly spaced X. Okay, and open dialog. And there are several methods. This is not a new tool. I'm just picking a tool to show something. So I'm going to set a sampling interval, and I'm going to set that sampling interval to 0.3. You can always do an auto preview in such dialogs in Origin. So it's already showing you how the result will look like. Now, rather than creating a new output, I'm just going to say, send that to the input and click OK. So you can see that the input changed. But now I can undo and go back, and I can redo. Okay. So undo redo works even with data changes like that. Okay. There is also support for deleting worksheet and doing undo, deleting folder and doing undo. So you may want to play with that. Another quick example, I have a graph here. I want to apply a theme. As you know, under preferences menu, there is a theme organizer. This is not new. It's been around for many, many versions. So I'm going to choose physical review letters and apply and close. So I can undo, redo between these two themes. Okay. Just a few random examples of undo, redo. So it really depends on what really makes the user experience better for you. So you need to really try it. And if there are issues, we would love to hear from you. Okay. So let's move on. The next feature I want to talk about is improvements we have done to annotation and graphic objects. Okay. So one of the improvements we did that many customers ask for is if I choose an object or even shift select and choose an object, I can hold the control key now and drag and it will make a copy. Okay, this was not possible before. Um, so that's an easy way to duplicate something, even a group of objects. Okay. Another feature is that I can group objects. So in this case, I have these two lines. So if I go click on this line and shift click on this line, okay, and over here in the toolbar here on the right side, there is an option here for grouping. So if I click this button, it will show me more. I'm using a laptop, so due to restricted pixels, it doesn't show all of the buttons. So now it's grouped. So one issue in the past was when you group objects, you cannot edit common properties. So now we support that. So even though the objects are grouped, I can change things like line thickness, color, etc. So this wasn't possible in previous versions. You would have to ungroup, change the properties, and then regroup again. Okay. This toolbar has several buttons. One of them is an alignment button. So there's a vertical alignment button. So if I type in some text on my page, and if I choose the vertical align button, it'll center it to the page. Okay, so that's something that customers ask for quite often as well. Okay, so many buttons here now act on these objects. Okay, another important change is we have this object manager, which again is not new, has been around for many versions. So in object manager, now there's a button whether you want to show the actual plot. So in this case, it's saying, here's the graph page, here's the layer, and here's the plot. But if I click this button, it will say, here are all the graph objects on that graph. Okay, so as you can see, there are many, many objects. And Origin actually even shows the text of the object, you know. So x-axis title, y-axis title, etc. And you will notice that some of these objects are grayed out. So what that really means is those objects are outside of the page. And this often happens with customers. So if I click the control key and zoom out, you can see there are a few objects that are outside. So if I click, it's going to select that. So then I can, by looking at this object manager, I can be aware, are there objects that are way outside of my page? And then so I can find them and I can bring them back into my page or delete them if I don't want to. That's something that has come up often in the past, and we implemented that feature in this version. Okay. Questions, comments, please type in the chat window. Okay. Let's move on. So the next feature is a time series explorer graph, and next few features kind of go together. There is a time series explorer graph, there is an unstacking feature, and a time series app. So let's talk about all of that. So I have here sea-level data from several years, all the way from 1905 through 2024. And if I just make a plot of this, I could zoom in and try to see the behavior over a shorter period of time. You know, if I hold the X key, I can pan. If I hold the Z key, I can zoom. But this is not ideal when I am working with a large time series. So we added a new template. So with the column selected, if I go to the plot menu, as you know, Origin has many different categories and many templates that we ship with. But we also have this concept called extended templates. So extended templates are those that are on the website. They're not quite in your Origin, but you can download them. And there is a template center button here. Let me quickly show that. If I click on the template center button, it will show all of the templates available on our cloud. Then I can go get the one I want. The Time Series Explorer is already pre-installed. So the black button means it's not pre-installed. You can download and install it. Then it will show up in your extended templates category. So if I go back here to extended templates, you can see that the Time Series Explorer is already there. So let me open that template. So what this does is it splits the graph into two layers. Okay, it went into speed mode because of the large data set, but let me just turn that off. Okay, let me just also minimize these floating windows. So now the idea here is that I can set a range. So for example, I can set the range to be 1 year. Okay, so then it's showing me this window for 1 year. I can drag it anywhere, and then up here it will show me exactly where I am, okay, in the time series. So this way I can explore my data. I can also thumb through. I can do backward, forward, all the way to the beginning or end. I can even click a play button and sit back and click OK and then watch the data evolve, okay, as a function of time with the window that I set. So this may be a useful feature for you to play with if you work with many time series type of data and you want to explore them. And once you set a window, you can of course come here and do any sort of analysis that you want to do on that subset. Okay. Speaking of subsets and doing analysis, that leads us nicely into the next feature, which would be unstacking by time interval. So here again, I have that same sea-level data. So what if I want to do some analysis and do compare plotting? Plot like 1 year versus another stacked, so that I can really compare them. I can analyze them, maybe use a vertical cursor to read values, etc. So what we did was we added a new menu item. So if you choose the column B here, there is a restructure menu now, which was introduced a couple of versions ago. The worksheet menu had too many items, so we moved many things to restructure. So under restructure, there is now an unstack by time interval. Okay, that's the new feature in this version. So if I open the dialog, it'll ask me, how do you want to unstack? It auto-sensed it and set it to year. So I can accept that and say, click OK. So it essentially takes the data and splits it. Okay. So every annual cycle of the data is in its own column, XY column now. Okay. This then makes it easy to handle the subsets by themselves. So for example, I can click and select the entire split data set, and I can go to the plot menu and go to the browser plot. The browser plot is not new. It has been around for a while. If you haven't played with it, it's definitely worth taking a look at. So there are multiple options here. I'm going to choose the color lines option. So what it does is it picks up all the columns in the sheet and shows me here. Right now it's showing only the long name. You can see that the year is in a label called year. So I can right click here and say, show me that label. I don't really want to see the long name. So now you can thumb through and see how things change. You can even drag and select a bunch. And then there are many options in the browser plot. This is not new. I can say stack them. So this way they are nicely stacked. I can even go here and say select every end. So I can say 20. So it's selected every 20th year. So that way I can easily compare how did the sea level change over a span of time with a time gap of 20 years from one to the other. So this is in general features of the browser plot. So I recommend you play with the browser plot. There are many other options here as well. Okay, so now sometimes time series data has a different cycle. It may not always begin in January. So let me go to change parameters, and I can type here start from July. Okay, and go all the way to end. Okay, if I do this and click OK, it's going to show me only data from July. I can rescale it. It's going from end of June through December. So I can again go back here, change parameters. I can say go from July to June. Okay, so there are many options. Okay, that you want to play with. So now it's going from end of June to all the way 1 year. Okay, now let me take a different data set and show some other features. So this is a continuous glucose monitor data where the measurement has been done over several weeks. And I really want to compare how does my glucose profile look this Monday compared to other Mondays, this Sunday compared to other Sundays, because the pattern of my diet, my eating may change depending on it's a weekday or weekend. So let me just copy one particular text here. Control C. So let's go back to the data here. And let's do that same dialog, which is unstacked by time interval and open dialog. So in this case, I will use day, which is appropriate for my data. And then I can also add additional labels. I can say, show me the weekday, as in, is it a Monday? Is it a Tuesday? Show me the month and show me the day. I got an extra character here. So let me click OK. So then it will take and split the data. And you can see now that the data has the day of the month, the day name, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And it goes on, and the month label is merged. There are 2 months here in this data. So they're just merged together. There is May and there is June. Okay. Let's plot this now using the browser plot. So if I go to plot menu and choose the color lines option, here now I can right click and say, show me the weekday, show me the day of the month, and show me the month, and turn off the long name. So now I can say, hey, control click and choose Monday to Monday, for example. Okay, I can again do that same trick we did before, as in stacking the lines by Y offset. Okay, so now if I choose Monday, I can go here and say select every end, and I can say select every 7th. So then it will show me all the Mondays. Okay, now I can go here and say flip through, and a dialog comes up. I can say show me all Tuesdays, show me all Wednesdays, show me all Thursdays. So very flexible way of splitting your data and graphing and interacting with it. Of course, then you can go do analysis on this graph, publish it, whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, this also has an export option where you can make an AVI movie. Okay, this browser plot is not a new feature. It has existed for many versions, so I would urge you to look into that. Okay, so moving on to the next time series related feature. Every version of Origin, we publish apps. And apps are not really tied to a version. They can be published anytime, but we tend to have a selection of apps published at the same time that a version comes out. So you can see in this highlights page that we have a set of apps here: time series analysis, tolerance interval, attribute analysis, gauge R&R study, etc. Okay, and as you know, in Origin, if you go to the apps bar here, if you don't see it, you can go to the view menu and turn on the apps bar. Excuse me. Then if you click add apps, you can go search for apps. So for example, if I want to search for all stats apps and search, it will show you all the apps available. Apps are free. They have a requirement as a minimum version. So this particular app has a minimum version requirement of 2019, and it's pro only. This particular app has a minimum version requirement of 2020. It's available for both standard and pro. So those are the requirements. If you have the latest version with maintenance, and if you have pro, then all the apps are available to you. Okay. So one of the apps that we published in this particular version is time series analysis. So I'll just show the main GUI. I'm not going to go into the details of this particular app here. Let me see. I may not have. Okay, here it is, time series analysis. So this app has many options: time series plot, statistics test, transform and decompose, smooth, ARIMA, spectral analysis, etc. So when you choose a particular item and then you choose one of the sub items, then it will bring up a dialog, just like any other dialog in Origin, and then you can walk through. So here I have ARIMA already done, and here is the detailed report. Just like how you do linear regression, NLFit, etc., creates a detailed report, the app does that too. So I can go here and say, click and say change parameters and bring back the details. I can look at the preview. I can change some factors, model, etc. So this is doing prediction for future based on the trend of the data using ARIMA. Okay, so if you are interested in this, if you go again, like I said, to the support menu and then go to webinars and then go to recorded webinars, my colleague did a very extensive webinar on this, graphing and analyzing time series data. It's been put up, the OPJU is available, and you can play it, or you can go to YouTube and watch it. So this webinar goes into much more details of the time series app. Okay, so I urge you to look at that webinar and or download the time series app and play with it. Okay. Okay, that finishes our subgroup collection of features related to time series. So now let's look at a few other features. As you may know already, Origin introduced an image window in some versions back. So you can bring in a stack of images, you can bring in even a video. Previously, you had to bring in it into a matrix. So now this is an image. You can move the cursor around and you can read the pixel values. You can also do things like calibration based on a scale, etc. Those are not new. What's new is that with this kind of image, it was not easy to plot all types of graphs in Origin. Only a simple scatter raster plot was supported. But now we support all sorts of plots with images. So for example, I can go to 3D and say, give me a 3D contour surface plot. So that's the surface plot of the image. In this graph, I have just flattened the surface and used a different color scheme. So it's the same thing. Here is a more detailed example. So here I have a stack of images. It's a dot blot image set. And then if I go here to the plot menu and go to contour and heat map, you may already know we have image profile plots. So I can open an image profile plot, and then I can set vertical and or horizontal profiles. So let me kill this vertical profile and let's just choose with horizontal. Let me change it to red. I can change the scale. By scale, I can change it to say something like 25. Okay. And then I can go and say add one more horizontal line. And I can change that to say green. And I can again by scale 25. So now I can move these around and compare the dot plot projections from two different slices here. So that's basically what I had done in this graph, just to show you as a case study that I have dot plots and I made a graph and browser plot in this case. So I can cycle through all of my dot plot images using the browser plot and look to see how let me turn on the profile here. And if I click here, everything should update in the graph. So it's updating, but I have to go do a rescale here on this graph. For some reason, it doesn't auto rescale to one curve. But anyway, there may be some improvements to be made. But the main message is that you can start from an image or a set of images and make really cool graphs, many different types of graphs. Okay. Next, ROI-based data extraction. So the idea here is that I can draw arbitrary ROIs and extract data sets from within each ROI. So let me just show you by just deleting everything here. Delete this ROI and delete this ROI. Okay. So if you go to the gadgets menu, there is a new gadget called, let it go. Cluster data extraction. Okay. So if I click that, a toolbar comes, a dialog comes. So I can set things here about the color, etc., and the shape. So for example, let's say I want a circle and click OK. Then Origin will say, okay, I place a circle for you. You decide where you want the first ROI to be. Okay. And the nice thing about this is that I can keep adding ROI. So I can say add an ROI, and Origin will say, okay, what type of shape do you want? I can say, okay, I want a freehand drawn shape. So I can go ahead and try to grab, only the blue data. Okay. And then I can say, okay, give me another polyline type. And I can do the reds. Okay, here the colors are based on the class of the flower here. It's the data set has a column with the type. I made a mistake there with the other one. So let me just go back and draw. Oh, I have to click the done button. I apologize. Click done. And then I have to click add again. And click here and draw another. So you get the idea that you can draw arbitrary ROI shapes to identify subsets of your data. And once you're done with that, there are several options here. One of the options being extract all of those into a subset. Then it will give you the broken down data sets into three different subsets here. Okay. So it's automatically tagging them as all of this is Setosa, all of that is Virginica, all of that is versicolor. Okay. This was requested by a user and we worked with them and got it working. So next, SharePoint. I just wanted to mention that Origin has a way to connect to cloud. If you are in a corporation or a university where SharePoint is popular, you can go to the data menu and say connect to cloud. And connect to cloud also works with Google Drive and OneDrive. So we have three options now: Google Drive, OneDrive, and SharePoint. Just wanted to show that it's now possible to open a project file from a cloud source such as SharePoint or OneDrive. In previous versions, it was not possible to open a project. Okay, it comes with a caveat that if you open from one of these clouds, then it really depends on their rules about conflicts. If you open and somebody else opens and you both edit, who gets the priority, which one goes back? So that's a little murky to us. The rules may keep changing, and it may depending on how OneDrive behaves versus Google Drive behaves, etc. So play with it, and if you have issues with it, we would love to hear from you to understand user stories so we can do a better job. Okay, new graphs. So with every version, we add new graph types. So in this version, we have added a few. So I'll just show them to you. Okay, so we added a 3D floating bar chart, which was asked for a while. Okay, we added a new chart type called hierarchical edge bundling. So this falls under the category of infographics. We have added several like the Sankey plots and other types in recent versions. So this is showing trade in wood among countries, and it shows the flow, trade surplus, trade deficit, etc. Okay, a couple of other plots contour and streamline plot. In previous versions, it was not easy to make these kind of plots. So we have you had to separately compute the distribution, the vectors for the differential and plot. But now if you click and select your data, it will automatically compute that and plot for you. Same with the QR plot, which also adds these QR arrows that shows the trend in the flow of your data from the maximum to the minimum, etc. Okay. Now, going back to the home page and the highlights page. In the highlights page, like I mentioned before, we have sections highlighting key features, but towards the end, we always have other features. We have several features here that we list, and some of them may pertain to you. You might find that, okay, this is great. Somebody wanted a light gray dark theme, so we added that. Somebody wanted to add arrows along a line plot, so we added that. So there are many little features here, and just to show one of them, so I have a graph here where I have set my x-axis to the month and the year. Excuse me. So they're all running into each other. So if I double click and open the axis dialog, you can see I typed MMM space YYYY, which is Origin's internal notation. MMM is the month name and YYYY is the year and numbers. So I can now go add like a /n for new line and click apply. And you can see that Origin smartly does the wrapping, and it only shows the year where it needs to. So for example, this is all 2019, and here is 2020, and here is 2021. So just a nice feature that we were able to sneak in, and you may miss it if you look at the highlights. So there are many features. In each version, we add 50, 60 features. And there's always release notes that you can look at for more details. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover for today. It was a quick walkthrough. The webinar is being recorded. So when you come back next week, you can go to support and go to training webinars and click on recorded webinars and get the recording from there. And also, as always, we want to hear from you, suggestions for new features, any improvements to Origin that you want to see. We would love to hear from you. So please keep in touch and have a wonderful rest of the day and have a great weekend.